Okay, so there's a video blowing up on social media right now. A US border guard yelling at a Canadian car. And get this, he tells the driver, never come back to the US again. Really? That's how you treat your closest neighbor and longest friend? That clip is getting people fired up for a good reason. I also got a CBC article where our favorite idiot is back at it again. This time threatening Canada's airport US preclearance system. Thankfully, someone actually called him out on his rhetoric. And I also have a few clips of a Canadian man who was shot dead in the US on a golf trip. Things are starting to get dicey down there, and the warning signs for Canadians and international travelers are hard to ignore now. Now before we dive in, today's backdrop is a photo from my mom that she took at Niagara Falls. I sent her and my dad on an Eastern Canada trip to grab some shots for the channel and also for her website, which I still haven't built yet. Thanks again for your suggestions on places for them to visit. And last thing before we start, we just crossed 70,000 subs. I can't thank you enough for sticking around and supporting my channel. I also noticed a bunch of you mentioned you got unsubscribed without unsubscribing yourself. I'm guessing it's a YouTube issue, but I thank everybody for hopping back on board. Alright, let's get to the border guard's temper tantrum.
Never come to the U.S. Yes, gang, stop. To the U.S. again. Never come to the U.S. Yes, gang, stop.
Before we even get into this clip, I need to say something about the driver. If you're cruising in the left lane and people are piling up behind you, just move over. Pull into the right lane and let them pass. This situation probably would have never happened. But here's the thing, it did happen. And the reaction of the US border guard is way out of line. We're talking about someone in uniform, representing law enforcement. Professionalism is supposed to come with that badge, supposedly. Instead, screaming for them to never come to the US again. This whole situation isn't even about the left lane. It's pure anger, and it feels personal from this guy. Think about it this way. If that's how the guard handles himself on the road, what is he like when he's the one deciding if you make it across the border or not? Picture this. The guy finishes his commute, shows up fired up for work at the border, already pissed about something. And guess what? You're the first Canadian to pull up to his gate. Do you really think he's going to greet you politely? Yeah, I don't think so either. And that's where the real question comes in. If this is the attitude that Canadians are running into, why keep traveling there? Why keep spending our money in the country when the very people deciding whether we get through the gates or not are showing hostility towards us? This video is really starting to blow up on Reddit, and the reaction there is the exact same as what we're feeling right now. It's even on the subreddit r/public freakout, and it's already sitting at 7,200 upvotes. That tells you people are paying attention and they're all aligned. It's not just some random users either. Your fellow Canadian citizens are just as pissed off. Take a look at some of these screenshots. They're saying the exact same things we're saying here. If you want to dive deeper into the comments on Reddit, I highly recommend that you check out the subreddit r/boycott United States. I go there myself daily just to check things out, and it's full of people who think like we do on this channel. I'll drop a link in the description if you want to check it out. This next article I want to talk about, it's another case of Pete Hoekstra putting his foot in his mouth again. This time it happened at a forum in Banff, Alberta, and the topic of preclearance came up. Now, for anyone outside of Canada or even the US who might not be familiar with preclearance, here's a quick description. If you're flying from the US from a Canadian international airport, you actually go through US customs and immigration right here in Canada, on Canadian soil. So for example, if you're flying out of Vancouver or Toronto, you'll pass through CBP officers before you even get to your gate. Once you're cleared, you'll head to the departures area and you're basically in the United States. When the plane lands in the United States, you walk off like a domestic passenger. No need for extra customs or lines or anything like that. You just go straight to your luggage. Preclearance has been around for decades, longer than I have been traveling. It's something that both Canadians and US citizens are used to. It's normal and it works. Well, when we want to go. But at this forum in Banff, Pete being Pete decided to stir the pot. He told the audience, the numbers are down. We're not sure we can make the numbers work anymore. Preclearance is done at the expense of the US government. We pay for it. Okay, that's a bit standoffish. But then he adds, you know you can't make the numbers work anymore. You're all business people. You know what that means. You got to take a look at some of these things. So with my 5 months of YouTube creating experience and expert analysis, I say what Pete was really getting at is that he's threatening to cut preclearance altogether. all because we're not traveling to his so-called greatest country in the world. Now here's the best part. Colin Robertson, a former Canadian diplomat and moderator for the forum, actually called him out on his bullshit. Colin said, preclearance was brought in by President Eisenhower. It worked really well when Canadians go to the States. Maybe not as many did a year and a half ago, or half a year ago, but we're still going an awful lot. We're your biggest source of tourism. If you end preclearance, doesn't that cut off your nose to spite your face? And how did Hoekstra respond? Nobody said we're ending preclearance. Don't put words in my mouth. Robertson later said in an interview, to me, it was like a threat, saying, all right, if you don't come, we're going to cut out preclearance. And honestly, from what was written on the article, it does sound like a threat. I'm glad Colin called Pete out, because too many interviewers let him slide. They don't ask him the hard questions. They don't push back on the nonsense. We're not stupid. We see the gaslighting, and we know the jab that he's been taking at us. Now, the article gets into what happens if preclearance is removed from Canada. Now, I'll admit, it would make things a lot harder going to the US, and a lot more nervous as well. With my Nexus card right now, the process is smooth and quick. Well, the process itself is, but not with the CBP officers. But here's the problem. If preclearance disappears, and we're stuck with the same kind of CBP guards, like the guy screaming in the truck, then every Canadian traveler ends up boarding a plane, landing on US soil, and if anything goes sideways, you're completely at the mercy of whatever CBP and ICE decides to do. At least right now, with preclearance, you're still on Canadian soil if something goes wrong. My guess? Preclearance isn't going to go anywhere. Pete is just being Pete, an idiot. But with all the drastic policy changes that this current administration keeps pulling, nothing is really off the table right now. And if preclearance does disappear, you can bet that even more Canadians are going to stop traveling to the US. I'll leave a link in the description to this article if you want to read the whole thing yourself. Speaking of traveling to the US, I have a really sad report to share. A Canadian went down to the US on a family golf trip, and he was killed by a drive-by shooting. There's still no motive, no suspects, but in a country where 3 or 4 out of 10 citizens own guns, your chances of getting caught in a random or targeted violence, it's a lot higher. Let's take a look at this report.
His name is Giovanni Robinson, but he was known as Mike, a 32-year-old Canadian traveling in Wisconsin with family and friends on a golf trip when he was gunned down and killed on a street in downtown Sheboygan Falls, about an hour north of Milwaukee, early Wednesday. The motive, unknown.
We are empty. We are broken. My sister's broken. His brother's broken. The sister's broken. The dad, the whole entire family, the whole community, our entire lives are broken.
Robinson had left a bar with others where an employee told a local television station Robinson and his companions were polite customers. Outside, when walking home for the night, the unthinkable happened. The employee of Falls Tap asked not to be identified.
If this was a true drive-by, it's something to be concerned about? Could this happen again? Possibly.
My thoughts go out to the family of Mike. Something like this should never happen, especially when you're on vacation. But it does make me wonder, if the employee says they were friendly and polite customers, then what would the motive for this even be? It doesn't sound like they were causing trouble in the bar, so I can only think of 2 possibilities. Either it's completely random, or maybe whoever shot them just didn't like them. Maybe because they were Canadian? I know that's a bold statement, but hey, we know that there are US citizens that don't want us there. I'm just completely speculating here, but from what's described, it doesn't sound like they were causing any problems at the venue.
Robinson grew up in Stouffville, north of Toronto. His family is well known in the community. Their love of hockey earned them a front-page article in the local newspaper in 2004. Robinson went on to play Junior A hockey with the Stouffville Spirit in the Ontario Junior Hockey League, later playing in the OHL. He played professional hockey with the Hanover Scorpions in Germany. Robinson and his wife have a 6-week-old daughter, seen here. Family members told the Milwaukee television station his sister Riley will be married October 4th. Robinson worked as director of design at a golf shop in Texas and had previously lived in New Jersey. On Tuesday, Robinson shot a hole-in-one at the Whistling Straits golf course, according to family members.
So we got a call about the high, and then all of a sudden,
We're waking up to a call that he's no longer. How is that with us?
Sheboygan Falls police are still looking for the killer, telling us no suspects have been apprehended, adding the preliminary investigation revealed the victim was shot by an unknown individual driving in a vehicle, described as a small, dark-colored SUV.
gun, a shooter that they haven't caught. I don't understand.
I really hope the suspect is caught. and that Mike and his family get justice they deserve. Now, I have one more report to cover on this topic, and then I'll share my thoughts after.
What started as a Wisconsin golf vacation ended with the mysterious shooting death of a Canadian tourist in Sheboygan Falls.
As someone shot 32-year-old Giovanni Robinson, who went by the name of Mike, on a downtown sidewalk after he left a restaurant and bar. It is Sheboygan County's first homicide of the year. 12 News' Nick Bohr is there live, and Nick, last check, police were still searching for a motive.
Right, a very puzzling crime here. The family and police saying that Robinson had just left that bar and restaurant, was on the sidewalk here with his brother-in-law and two friends when a dark, small SUV pulled up here at the street. A shot was fired from the driver's seat, and he fell right there on those train tracks. His family in Canada now pleading for help.
His brother-in-law held him. Yeah, held him in his arms, tried to bring him back, and held him in his arms.
Speaking to 12 News from Toronto, family members shared how a destination golf trip to play the world-renowned Whistling Straits course ended in tragedy in Sheboygan Falls.
Now, I'm a golfer. I mentioned that plenty of times in my previous videos. I'd love to play the big-name golf courses in the United States, Pebble Beach being one of them. But with the current climate that we're in right now, and with the values about standing up for Canada, I've let go of that dream of doing a US golf tour. Why? Because I just don't want to be there. And situations like this show why. And for the trolls watching saying that it's just a one-off situation, I'm not taking that chance.
32-year-old Giovanni Mike Robinson of the Canadian capital of Ottawa had been celebrating a hole-in-one at a bar with family and friends. He was on a downtown sidewalk just 2 blocks from the police station when the shooting happened.
We have an unknown situation of a subject who was shot and is not conscious, not breathing.
Police say a small, dark-colored SUV pulled up. The driver fired one shot at his group and drove off.
A caring young man, killed for no reason, was outside on their way back to the hotel in a car. Shot him, dead.
Police on Thursday said they have no motive and no suspect in custody and asked for the public's help. Adding to the heartbreak for the family, Robinson just became a dad 6 weeks ago to his baby daughter, Sarah.
He knew exactly how to take care of her. He was the best dad to her, and now she's gonna not know him.
It's a story that's hard to wrap your head around.
Nick, was the family able to shed any light on what led up to this shooting?
They have no idea. As I said, there were family members with him at the time. They've relayed that they were at a couple of bars and a restaurant here, but say there was no trouble ahead of the shooting here.
Just such a tragic situation, unfortunate series of events.
Now, this is just my bias, my personal view of the US right now. But do you really think the police and authorities are going to give a case of a Canadian being murdered the proper attention it deserves? It's sad that I even have to think like this, but I'm pretty sure it's warranted. So what's my take on this? It saddens me that it happened. But when you put yourself in an environment where incidents like this happen every single day in every single state, you're at more risk of becoming part of it. If Mike and his family decided to stay in Canada for the golf trip, he'd still be alive today. And I don't want to sound insensitive to them and the family, but this really didn't need to happen. The United States we see today is drastically different than even a year ago. The hate, the racism, the anger towards Canadian and people of color, it's all gone up. And people are not realizing this. We've seen it already with that border guard, telling a Canadian driver never to come back to the US. In Mike's case, maybe it was random. But I'll say this, I don't want to be that random guy in a random situation that ends up getting shot down. If you found this video helpful, hit the like and subscribe and share it with your friends so this message gets out to more people. And if you're still here and want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that are popping up on your screen now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.